We are still in First Kings. As a little bit of a recap, Solomon has died, and like happens with a lot of empires, his kingdom is fought over by two of his sons, and they basically split the kingdom, and they are two kingdoms. It's called the divided kingdom, and that will last from for now until a long time, depending on how you read it, to the time, at least to the time of the Babylonian exile, probably. So that's 400 years that it's two kings, two kingdoms, two sets of rulers and everything. That was the last thing that we sort of talked about. So we are at the beginning of chapter 13. And from now, when I say Judah or Judea, that's the southern kingdom, and Israel is not all the people, but that's the northern kingdom. So when we think of Israel, I think of the whole nation, but that is the tribe and the area in the north, and Judah or Judea is the tribe or the area in the south.
And that has Jerusalem in it, right?
Yeah, Jerusalem is in the south. Nazareth and the Sea of Galilee, the Galilee area is in the north. The south has Bethlehem, Bethany, Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay. While Jeroboam was standing by the altar to offer incense, Jeroboam was one of the two kings. He's the king in the north. A man of God came out of Judah by the word of the Lord to Bethel, and proclaimed against the altar by the word of the Lord, and said, "O altar, altar, thus says the Lord, a son shall be born to the house of David, Josiah by name, and he shall sacrifice on you the priests of the high places, who offer incense on you, and human bones shall be burned on you." Wow. He gave a sign. Oops, I'm turned too far. That same day, saying, "This is the sign that the Lord has spoken. The altar shall be torn down, and the ashes that are on it shall be poured out." When the king heard what the man of God cried out against the altar at Bethel, Jeroboam stretched out his hand from the altar, saying, "Seize him." But the hand that he stretched out against him withered, so that he could not draw it back to himself. The altar was also torn down, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign that the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. The king said to the man of God, "Entreat now the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, so that my hand may be restored to me." By the way, this is not the altar I don't believe this is the altar in the temple. This is the altar in the new place of worship in the north. Verse 6, the king said to the man of God, I said that already.
No, you didn't. That's fine.
The king said to the man of God, "Entreat now the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, so that my hand may be restored to me."
Oh, yeah.
So the man of God entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him, and became as it was before. Then the king said to the man of God, "Come home with me and dine, and I will give you a gift." But the man of God said to the king, "If you give me half your kingdom, I will not go in with you, nor will I eat food or drink water in this place. For thus I was commanded by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat food or drink water, or return by the way that you came." So we went another way, and did not return by the way that he had come to Bethel. So it just something just struck me. Where else have we heard that someone returned by another way?
The wise men.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember why it was that they were supposed to return by another way?
So he couldn't waylay them.
To be safe, right? Because
Yeah.
he's basically just said, this is improper worship. It's not God's way. This needs to be destroyed. Well, that would have made a lot of people upset.
Mm-hmm.
He's covering his tracks.
Mhm.
He's from the south kingdom. That's where it said he's from Judah. Now there lived an old prophet in Bethel. One of his sons came and told him all that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. The words also that he had spoken to the king, they told to their father. Their father said to them, which way did he go? And his son showed him the way that the man of God had come from Judah and had gone. Then he said to his son, saddle a donkey for me. So they saddled the donkey for him, and he mounted it. He went after the man of God and found him sitting under an oak tree. Well, he didn't cover his tracks well enough. He said to him, are you the man of God who came from Judah? He answered, I am. Then he said to him, come home with me and eat some food. But he said, I cannot return with you or go in with you, nor will I eat food or drink water with you in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat food or drink water there or return by the way that you came. Then the other said to him, I also am a prophet as you are, and an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord. Bring him back with you into your house so that he may eat food and drink water. But he was deceiving him. Then the man of God went back with him and ate food and drank water in his house.
Okay, I'm confused. Which
Yeah,
one
I
is
am
which?
too.
So one guy was going home, and another
Right.
local prophet went to him and said, come eat and drink with me. And the guy who had come there to speak out against the
Yeah.
thing said, oh, I can't. I'm not supposed to eat food or drink water here. And he says, oh, an angel told me. The guy who lives there. So he deceived him to try to get him to
Oh, okay. So the guy that lives there is the king, right? That's what it says here.
another prophet. No, it says that he's another prophet. So the
Oh.
11 now there lived another old prophet in Bethel. That's the guy who came and deceived.
Oh, you're right. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was the king riding the donkey. I wondered why the king was riding a donkey.
No, it's the old prophet that's from that area.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Who was deceiving the prophet that just spoke out against their worship in the north.
Right.
This is
So which
not
one is the-
part of scripture that we read very often.
No, it is still an interesting story though. I like it because it's what we're going to see with the divided kingdom is, without necessarily saying it outright, God wants the kingdom to unite, right? And so he keeps kind of trying to, no, we're not two temples, we're not two people.
Mhm.
At this point, they've already lost quite a few of the tribes, of the 12 tribes, have sort of gone off to do their own thing. So the people, the chosen people are sort of disintegrating, and it feels like a lot of First and Second Kings is about things to try to bring the people together.
Okay.
So, verse 20. As they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And this is the guy who was local. And he proclaimed to the man of God who came from Judah, thus says the Lord, because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord and have not kept the commandment that the Lord God has commanded you, but have come back and have eaten food and drunk water in the place of which he said to you, eat no food and drink no water, your body shall not come to your ancestral tomb. Wow.
Yeah.
As he was deceived, that's not fair. After the man of God had eaten food and had drunk, they saddled for him a donkey belonging to the prophet who had brought him back. Then as he went away, a lion met him on the road and killed him. See, he shouldn't have stopped. He should have kept
going.
His body was thrown on the road, and the donkey stood beside it. The lion also stood beside the body. People passed by and saw the body thrown on the road with the lion standing by the body, and they came and told it in the town where the old prophet lived. Wow. Okay. When the prophet who had brought him back from the way heard of it, he said, it is the man of God who disobeyed the word of the Lord, because he listened to you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Therefore, the Lord has this totally unfair. Therefore, the Lord has given him to the lion, which has torn him and killed him, according to the word that the Lord spoke to him. They said to his son, saddle a donkey for me. So they saddled one. And he went and found the body thrown in the road, with the donkey and the lion standing beside the body. The lion had not eaten the body or attacked the donkey. The prophet took up the body of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, and brought it back to the city to mourn and to bury him. He laid the body in his own grave, and they mourned over him, saying, alas, my brother. After he had buried him, he said to his sons, when I die, bury me in the grave in which the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying that he proclaimed by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel and against all the houses of the high places that are in the cities of Samaria shall surely come to pass. Even after this event, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way. So Jeroboam is the king in the north. but made priests for the high places again from among the people, and any who wanted to be priests he consecrated for the high places. This matter became sin to the house of Jeroboam, so as to cut it off and destroy it from the face of the earth. So, do you remember a couple weeks ago we had the lesson of the woman at the well?
Right. And they all worshipped on high places.
They all worshipped on high places. Now, that's still the Jewish people, Hebrew people at this time, right? So this is part of what happened in the divided kingdom, and because they don't have the temple's in the southern kingdom.
Mhm.
Temple's just been built; it's brand new, basically. I mean, within a fairly short time. So instead of worshiping the temple, they're worshiping at the high places, and that's not going so well already, right?
It sure is a complicated story to make a point.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's kind of the Oriental thinking too, isn't it? In Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. You're right.
I mean, they could have just said, Jeroboam made an altar that displeased the Lord, and so it was destroyed, and his hand was withered temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're in the earlier what I like about Kings is there is a series of stories. A lot of them we don't hear that often, but there are some interesting kind of stories. So we are going to have one section where we're going to hear about each individual king for a while, but there's some interesting stories interwoven in there. So
Were both of the kings, that Jeroboam and the other one, were they sons of Solomon?
Rehoboam, they're both sons of Solomon.
Yeah, right.
Which we talked about a little bit last week. Yeah. Chapter 14. At that time, Abijah, son of Jeroboam, fell sick. Jeroboam said to his wife, "Go disguise yourself, that it will not be known that you are the wife of Jeroboam, and go to Shiloh for the prophet Ahijah." We have Abijah and Ahijah. Kind of make sure we can don't confuse those. "Who said of me that I should be king over this people? Take with you 10 loaves, some cakes, and a jar of honey, and go to him. He will tell you what shall happen to the child." Jeroboam's wife did so. She set out and went to Shiloh and came to the house of Ahijah. Now Ahijah could not see, for his eyes were dim because of his age. But the Lord said to Ahijah, "The wife of Jeroboam is coming to inquire of you concerning her son, for he is sick. Thus and thus you shall say to her." Thus and thus.
Yep. My version says such and such.
Yeah, right.
Thus and thus you shall say to her. Well, what is it that you can say to her? Anyway, when she came, she pretended to be another woman. But when Ahijah heard the sound of her feet, she came in at the door. He said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why do you pretend to be another? For I am charged with heavy tidings for you. Go tell Jeroboam, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, because I exalted you from among the people, made you leader over my people Israel, and tore the kingdom away from the house of David to give it to you. Yet you have not been like my servant David, who kept my commandments and followed me with all his heart, doing only that which was right in my sight. But you have done evil above all those who were before you, and have gone and made for yourself other gods and cast images, provoking me to anger, and have thrust me behind your back." So if you remember at the end of our last Bible study, he had made 2 golden calves to worship.
Right.
Much like what happened with in the wandering in the desert with Moses and Aaron. So it's interesting. It's often a calf. I think there's at least 3 times where someone makes a calf and worship it. Like, no, that's not. And I think the bull was a symbol of Baal. So that's part of the thing. Is it's an idol automatically when it's in the image of a calf or a bull. Yeah. Verse 10, "Therefore I will bring evil upon the house of Jeroboam. I will cut off from Jeroboam every male, both bond and free in Israel, and will consume the house of Jeroboam just as one burns up dung until it is all gone. Anyone belonging to Jeroboam who dies in the city, the dog shall eat." Wow.
Yeah.
"Anyone who dies in the open country, the birds of the air shall eat, for the Lord has spoken." Therefore set out, go to your house. When your feet enter the city, the child shall die. All Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he alone of Jeroboam's family shall come to the grave, because in him there is found something pleasing to the Lord, the God of Israel, in the house of Jeroboam. Moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel, who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam today, even right now. Wow.
I've lost what child was gonna die?
His Jeroboam, the king's child.
Okay.
And it says he's the only one that's gonna get buried. Everyone else is gonna be left to the dogs and the vultures.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. But maybe this is his only son, the only one who can take over the kingship.
Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, verse 15, the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will root up Israel out of this good land that he gave to their ancestors and scatter them beyond the Euphrates because they have made their sacred poles, provoking the Lord to anger. He will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who he sinned and which he caused Israel to commit. So I'm looking, the sacred poles are wooden cult objects associated with the worship of the Canaanite god Asherah, thought to be poles or perhaps representations of trees. So we already have the bowls, now we have the poles, which are idols, worshiping other gods. Then Jeroboam's wife got up and went away, and she came to Tirzah. As she came to the threshold of the house, the child died. All Israel buried him and mourned for him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant, the prophet Ahijah. Now, this is interesting. Now, the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he warred and how he reigned, are written in the books of the annals of the king of Israel. The time that Jeroboam reigned was 22 years, and he slept with his ancestors, and his son Nadab succeeded him. That happens a lot in scripture. Like they just skip over. There is no known copy of the book of the annals of the kings of Israel. But it was probably my Bible says it's probably the source of some of the chronological data included in Kings. Jeroboam reigned from 922 to 901 BC, give or take. So Rehoboam, the other brother, ruled in the south, where Jerusalem is. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city that the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. Judah did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. See, now both kings are doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord. They provoked him to jealousy with their sins that they committed more than all of their ancestors had done. For they also built for themselves high places, pillars, and sacred poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There were also male temple prostitutes in the land. They committed all the abominations of the nations that the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. So the word translated prostitute simply means consecrated or sacred individuals, not what we think of as prostitutes. Consecrated or sacred individuals, both men and women serve in this capacity. They're usually thought to have engaged in some sort of sexual licentious behavior in cultic context, but the exact nature is unknown. So prostitutes is probably a poor translation for whatever it was that they were, but they were like,
They probably were eunuchs.
possibly.
I don't know. My book says ritual prostitution was an important feature of Canaanite fertility religion. The Israelites had been warned by Moses not to engage in this abominable practice.
Wow.
So see that they were.
Yeah. Huh.
Anyway, that's what this one says. So
yeah, see, it's not like a prostitute for sex. It's more like a ritual thing. Yeah, interesting. In the 5th year of King Rehoboam, King Shishak of Egypt came up against Jerusalem. He took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasure of the house of the king's house. He took everything. He also took away all the shields of gold that Solomon had made. So King Rehoboam made shields of bronze instead and committed them to the hands of the officers of the guard who kept the door of the king's house. As often as the king went into the house of the Lord, the guard carried them and brought them back to the guard room. Remember all the gold that was in the temple?
Mm-hmm. Huge amounts.
A really short passage there says, oh, a king from Egypt came and took a lot of it, most of it.
Mhm.
Everything. Jeez.
Yeah. There's a note here for 1140. I'm going to go back and look about King Shishak. 1140. The Hebrew rendering of Pharaoh Shoshank the First. He later invaded Palestine during the reign of Rehoboam. I love when especially historical figures are cross-referenced by the Bible. Even these history sections are not, they're often, I think they're very historical, literally historical, but they're not always chronological. So it's sometimes sort of hard to sort of figure out what happened when, but when we can cross-reference with, oh, that happened when this king that was, the records were kept in Egypt, and Egypt kept really good records, we can cross-reference say, okay, this is when Rehoboam was. We can see those things a little more clearly, which is kind of neat. Part of the reason we know when certain things happen in the Bible is because of references to outside things which were kept by outside sources.
Yeah.
But I'm just imagining, remember everything was made of gold. The walls were covered with gold.
Yeah.
Right. And it says they carried off much of the treasure of the house, including the shields that Solomon had made out of gold. Wow. Now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam and all that he did are not written in the book. Are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. Rehoboam slept with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. His son Abijam succeeded him. So we have, a short story about each of them, and then it says, and then they did a lot of other stuff, but we don't need to talk about that now.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting, and mine has a little footnote about when they attacked the, what's his name? Shishak attacked, the king of Egypt attacked, it says at the bottom of it, it says indicate that, see, chapter 2, second chapter, it says indicates that the fear of the impending invasion led to a temporary reformation in Judah. Temporary, you notice that? not long lasting, just temporary.
I'm gonna just a little side note, it's interesting, the history books, but also a lot of the prophet books, the Jeremiah, especially the big prophets, it's a constant, like it's one underlying theme that keeps coming over and over and over again. The people are sinning. If they don't stop sinning, these bad things are going to happen. Bad things happen, they reform themselves. And then gradually they start sinning, and Jesus says, and God says, come on, stop sinning or you're going to get in trouble. And then bad things happen.
Yeah.
And they reform themselves over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that, I mean, what is Lent, right? To me, Lent is this chance for us to reform ourselves.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna mess up again.
Yeah.
Question. Did both of the sons of Solomon have their firstborn son named Abijah, Abijah?
No, Abijam is the son of Rehoboam.
Jeroboam.
And Jeroboam is Nadab, Nadab. Nadab is the son of Jeroboam. Abijam is the son of Rehoboam, who takes over for him. One of them had a son, Abijah, yes. He's the one that died. Wasn't Abijah the son that died?
All right.
Oh, we have Ahijah and Abijah and Abijam with an H or an M. So
Oh,
the son
okay.
of Jeroboam who died was
In my
Abijah.
version, both are spelled the same way. That's why I asked.
Yeah,
Okay.
in mine, in the first verse of chapter 14,
Mm-hmm.
it's Abijah with an H on the end.
Uh-huh.
That's about the son. And in the last verse of chapter 14, it's a son of Rehoboam, and that's Abijam. So the king who succeeds Jeroboam is Nadab, and the king that succeeds Rehoboam is Abijam.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't read far enough. Okay. I'm jumping ahead. Chapter 15.
What were the Asherah poles again? I didn't catch that.
The Asherah poles are I read it a minute ago. They are sacred poles, cult objects associated with the worship of the Canaanite goddess Asherah.
Oh, so
The poles are perhaps representation of trees. Yeah, so they had some kind of decorative pole that they worshiped, which was basically an idol.
okay.
And it looks like they were doing it in both the north and the south. So, yeah, yeah, it's mentioned in both sections as they're putting up sacred poles. So, okay, so we are going to have, I don't know how far we'll go, but it's not that late yet. We are going to have over the next couple of chapters a lot of we're going to go through we're going to pass a lot of time. We're going to go through several kingdoms all at once. So until we get to the best part, Elijah, we start to get Elijah's story at the end
Okay.
of First Kings. So there's a lot of stories about Elijah, and Elijah's a pretty important
Mhm.
probably part of the part of First Kings that we know the best. The part that we hear most of First Kings is some of the stories about Elijah. So we have a little time. Okay, so beginning of chapter 15, Abijam, that's the son of that's in the south, son of Rehoboam, reigns over Judah, is idolatry and war. So now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abijam, son of Nebat. That's interesting. Abijam began to reign over Judah. He reigned for 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. He committed all the sins that his father did before him. His heart was not true to the Lord his God, like the heart of his father David. Nevertheless, for David's sake, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem, setting up his son after him and establishing Jerusalem. Because David did what was right in the sight of the Lord and did not turn aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life. You see how we're like setting up David to be. They're changing the history a little bit, right?
The good guy, yeah.
Yeah,
When we
right.
hear about David, even though we just read about him, it's everybody's always compared to David as this ideal, and I'm like, did you read the same story we read?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, for David's sake, the Lord his God gave him. Oh, I did that already. Because David did what was right in the sight of the Lord and did not turn aside from anything that he commanded him all the day of his life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite.
Right. He did do that.
There might have been a couple other things too, but the war begun between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continued all the days of his life. The rest of the acts of Abijam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Judah? There was war between Abijam and Jeroboam. Abijam slept with his ancestors, and they buried him in the city of David. Then his son Asa succeeded him. So even Rehoboam's, Abijam's son, this is Abijam's son, right? Abijam. I'm confused. No, Abijam is Rehoboam's son, right? So we're going to hear a lot about, especially later on in this chapter and in chapter 15. We're going to jump through kingdoms. Basically said, and then this guy was a king and he ruled for this amount of time. And you know what he did is written in another book that we don't have, but that's okay.
Yeah.
His son Asa reigns over Judah. In the 20th year of King Jeroboam of Israel, Asa began to reign over Judah. He reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. Asa did what was right in the sight of the Lord, as his father had done. He put away the male temple prostitutes out of the land and removed all the idols that his ancestors had made. He also removed his mother Maacah from being queen mother because she had made an abominable image for Asherah. Asa cut down her image and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, but the high places were not taken away. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was true to the Lord all his days. He brought into the house of the Lord the votive gifts of his father and his own votive gifts, silver, gold, and utensils. So there's some overlap. If I'm going back because I have a little chart. Asa, and just for the sake of the timeline, Rehoboam rules from 922 to 915 to 7 years. Abijam only 2 years, 915 to 913. Asa from 913 to 873. Now, why is that important? Jeroboam, the other son of Solomon, rules until 901. So he rules over all three of those other kings from Judah. Remember that this may be obvious, but we count backwards, right? So Jeroboam rules from. I'll just put this in front of the camera for the sake of you can read that. Jeroboam rules from 922 to 901, while Rehoboam, Abijam, and Asa all rule, and even so at least the beginning of Asa's rule. Asa rules 41 years, so there's some overlap there. So now I got to go back to where I was, and I forgot to mark. What verse am I on here? Oh, here we go. Verse 16 of chapter 15. There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days. King Baasha of Israel went up against Judah and built Ramah to prevent anyone from going out or coming in to King Asa of Judah. And Asa took all the silver and the gold that were left in the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house and gave them into the hands of his servants. King Asa sent them to King Ben-Hadad of Tabrimon, son of Hezion of Aram, who resided in Damascus, saying, "Let there be an alliance between me and you like that between my father and your father. I am sending you a present of silver and gold. Go break your alliance with King Baasha of Israel so that he may withdraw from me." Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa, so he bribed him. Asa bribed him to bribed someone who was not part of this is sort of the interesting part, not part of the Hebrew people, so that he would get so he would get this other Jewish person, Hebrew person, off of his back, which is interesting. The chosen people are split so badly that they're even bringing in enemies to help them fight each other. Verse 20, Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa and sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel. He conquered Ijon, Dan, Abel, Beth, Maacah, and all Chinneroth with the lands of the Naphtali. When Baasha heard of it, he stopped building Ramah and lived in Tirzah. Then King Asa made a proclamation to all Judah, none was exempt. They carried away the stones of Ramah and its timber, with which Baasha had been building. With them, King Asa built Jebah of Benjamin and Mishpah. These are the building things are. It says that it kept people from going to the south. I think this was a fortress that was being built. So it was to keep people from getting to Jerusalem, getting to the south. So they're doing war. The two kingdoms are not only just living separately, but they're battling against each other. And so once the king from the north is distracted, King Asa takes all that stuff and builds his own fortress. Thanks for bringing us the supplies. Now we'll build our own fortress to defend our own land. Now all the rest of the acts of the Asa, all his power, all that he did, and the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? We've heard this 300 times before. But in his old age, he was diseased in his feet. Then Asa slept with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his father David. His son Jehoshaphat succeeded him. I remember when my dad used to always used to say, "Jump into Jehoshaphat,"
Mm-hmm.
which I think is kind of funny. So again, we're doing this kind of overlap. We've just been talking about Judah for a little while, and now we're going to go back to talking about Israel in the north, where Nadab is king, who was only the son of Jeroboam. So other kings there's some overlap here, right? We're going back and forth a little bit because after Nadab is Baasha, who also fought against Asa. That's what we just heard about, but Nadab was first. Nadab only ruled, according to my Bible, 1 year. And then Baasha was 23 years. So his rule is very short. Nadab, son of Jeroboam, began to reign over Israel in the 2nd year of King Asa of Judah. He reigned over Israel 2 years. Okay, 2 years. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. It's one or the other, right? Walking in the way of his ancestor and in the sin that he caused Israel to commit. Baasha, son of Ahijah of the house of Issachar, conspired against him, and Baasha struck him down at Gibeon, which belonged to the Philistines, for Nadab and all Israel were laying siege at Gibbethon. So Baasha killed Nadab in the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah and succeeded him. As soon as he was king, he killed all of the house of Jeroboam. He left to the house of Jeroboam not one that breathed, until he had destroyed it, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. Remember, we heard that already, that the prophet said that no one would survive from Jeroboam's house. It's taken a little while, but now they're all being killed out, and it's basically a coup. A coup happens in the house in Israel, because of the sins of Jeroboam that he committed and that he caused Israel to commit, and because of the anger to which he provoked the Lord, the God of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Nadab and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days. We keep hearing that, man. We don't have that book. Quit telling us to look in the book we don't have. Well, we're probably good there. I know I'm not ending. Well, yeah, I'll end this last little bit. In the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah, Baasha, son of Ahijah, began to reign over all Israel at Tirzah. He reigned 24 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, walking in the way of Jeroboam and in the sin that he caused Israel to commit. I know some of this is like hard to follow because it kind of bounces around a little bit, but I think there's value in the fact that what we're hearing is they don't know how to lead, I think, in some ways. It's not just, I mean, in a way we can sort of rule out the thing, oh, they did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. It's not just that, it's about this hey Bill, hey Sandy, Bill's at the door. They pretty much just do battle. And you don't hear about the things like Solomon built the temple and David did some other things. You don't hear about great works. You just hear about sort of sitting the palace and sending out armies against each other. You know, it's
fighting.
a lot of fighting, a lot of backbiting kind of stuff, right? Until we get into, there was sort of a the Old Testament is not chronological, but kind of chronological, meaning there are sections, right, and there's some overlap, but we're going to get into the period, what kind of the period. There have been prophets the whole time, right? I mean, you could even say Moses and Aaron were prophets, but the sort of the era of the prophets, there's been prophets in the story, but as we come into Elijah and after, the prophets take a bigger role in the story, and the prophets in our scriptures are mostly from that have their own books, are mostly from about 650 BC until 300 BC, which sounds like a big period of time, but actually in the history of the people, it's not that big a time. It's a time of great turmoil with the Babylonian exile and with the rebuilding of the temple later on. But in relative to the divided kingdom, it's important because we're gonna just sort of start the beginning of that pretty soon. But it's, I think something that maybe the battle does this too, but something that the prophets do is sort of really work to try to unite the people and try to sort of make everything more uniform. But I think being exiled out of the land sort of forced them to do that too, which is coming. We're still in 900 BC or 875 BC, so we're still 200 years from that. But we're going to move gradually toward to this point where the calamities of all the people sort of are forced them to unite again. Essentially, the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem is the final blow that pulls them back together. But there'll be a number of things that will happen. Samaria, the northern kingdom, is going to fall completely in not even like maybe 150 years. And so I always wonder, I don't know if it's even in scripture, I don't remember, how does the northern kingdom get reestablished? The place where Jesus is born, Nazareth and Galilee, because the entire northern kingdom falls in 722 BC. So it's interesting, at the time of Jesus, somehow it's been reestablished as a Jewish area. Just interesting to me. But we'll get through that. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bill Hartman is here in the office, so I will go visit with him.
Okay, and I'll see you at 12 or shortly
Yes.
after.
Yes, ma'am. One meeting after another today.
All too long. Hang in there.
All right.
I'm not going to leave the house till 12 to make sure that the Hartmans have plenty of time with you.
Okay, well,
And if they're still there, I can wait. I've got time this afternoon.
I
So,
mean, I don't know that it'll take a whole hour, but we'll see. So
yeah.
Don't forget where Judy said that book was, or maybe Sandy knows where it is.
I'll look
Yeah.
for it. We've done a lot of reorganization, so it might not be where it was. So
Yeah.
all right. See you all
Okay.
later. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.
Let me
Okay.
end-
Bye-bye.